Hello and welcome. My name is Anthony Martin. I am the founder and CEO of the Anthony Martin Foundation. In this YouTube video, I will be taking chapters from the biography of Tony Martin entitled In Service to the Filipinos, a Canadian's 36 Years of Triumph and Downfall in the Philippines. As of the recording of this video, the biography is still under construction. To reserve a copy, you can email us at info@anthonymartin.org. So, Tony Martin spent 36 years in the Philippines establishing credit unions to save the livelihood of thousands of poor Filipinos. However, he became a victim of the culture's crab mentality. That is, when Filipinos strike down other Filipinos because of envy, professional jealousy, revenge, or spite. Tony Martin's trust in the Filipinos was painfully betrayed in 1981, and his career suffered a staggering financial setback. He spent the last 14 years of his life in the Philippines barely scraping by. He died in 1994 and he's buried there. Now, because Tony Martin was a Canadian Catholic priest, his story is a bit of a hard sell to Canadians. Canadians who witnessed the horrible scandals involving Catholic priests in child sex abuse cases made stories about Catholic priests less palatable to Canadians. It did not help that the Catholic Church was also involved in the Canadian residential school system, and as late as the 2010s, Catholic churches were being burned down in certain parts of rural Canada. So the Catholic Church or the Catholic religion is not exactly a gentle topic of conversation for Canadians. The tragedy of the Scarborough Missions was that because it was a Catholic organization, it immediately would be written off, and as a result, stories about Catholic priests making heroic contributions to the communities that they were assigned to would never be told. Two of them, for example, Harvey Steele and Jack McIver, created credit unions in the Dominican Republic in the 1940s. Their impact was so substantial that it changed the lives of thousands of poverty-stricken residents. Another is Tony Martin, who spent 36 years in the Philippines, also creating credit unions. Now, it is important to point out to skeptical readers that Tony Martin actually left the Catholic Church in 1972 and resigned as a Catholic priest, but carried on his work with credit unions in the Philippines. Tony Martin's father was actually a Protestant Baptist and his mother a Catholic, so this made Tony Martin a Catholic priest who was partial to the Catholic religion. He only became a Catholic priest after succumbing to his mother's domineering influence, and it showed that when his mother died in 1972, Tony Martin resigned as a Catholic priest shortly afterwards. Now, what is remarkable about Tony Martin is that of all the Canadian priests who were sent to the Philippines, he was the only one who decided to stay and never returned to Canada. He gave up his Canadian citizenship in 1976. Tony Martin did this at a time of martial law and great economic difficulty in the Philippines. Because of the controversial work of organizing the poor, Tony Martin knew that the Philippine government could deport him back to Canada on false pretenses. To counter this, Tony Martin gave up his Canadian citizenship on April 26, 1976, claiming that his work with credit unions in the Philippines was aiding in the economic recovery of the country. The Philippine government agreed, but by doing so, the military and the politicians in the Philippines could no longer get rid of him. Tony Martin's bravery and dedication to his work in the Philippines would make him one of the most remarkable Canadians who ever lived. So over the next few videos, I will be taking chapters from the biography to give the viewer a general synopsis of the story of Tony Martin. His biography is currently under construction, but these videos will hopefully raise awareness about the story of Tony Martin within the Canadian and Filipino community. It is our hope that his story will grow in the consciousness of Canadians and Filipinos who have connections to the Philippines. Whether you are an immigrant to either country or part of a diplomatic corps or international development agency working in the Philippines, or if you are simply interested in the Philippines in general and want to understand the Filipinos' culture and mentality. Now, it is important to understand that the biography touches on the Filipino culture's faults and shortcomings. This biography is not a celebration of everything that is beautiful about the Filipinos. It deals with the poverty and crab mentality and all the other social ills plaguing Philippine society. It is very important for readers to understand how and why Filipinos seem to be their own worst enemy. Behind the warm smiles and welcoming friendliness of Filipinos lies a corrupted culture. Foreigners visiting the island cannot seem to understand why the warmth and friendliness of Filipinos does not translate to a just and caring society. The Philippines has one of the largest segments of people living below the poverty line. Wealth inequality is a serious and crippling disease that eats away at any Filipino's attempts to move up the social and economic ladder. The biography will expose the Filipinos' low self-esteem and defeatist mentality. The Philippines was nicknamed the sick man of Asia, and today the Philippines still struggle with chronic social and economic problems. Filipinos, because of their poverty and their history, carry with them a false sense of pride by claiming they are proud to be Filipinos. There is nothing to be proud of if you have to send your women to foreign countries to work as maids and caregivers. The phrase, "even Arabs and Chinese have Filipino maids," points to this. There is nothing to be proud of if the majority of your people are living in filth and their cities are surrounded by garbage. The biography of Tony Martin, while exposing these faults of the Filipinos, offers a ray of hope out of their predicament. The Philippines produces some of the smartest and most capable professionals, technocrats that can contribute to the progress of the country. But sadly, these highly talented, highly skilled Filipinos prefer to work abroad, denying the country the much-needed intellectual capital. Corruption still plays a huge role in Philippine society, siphoning off much-needed capital to build infrastructure and systems required to raise the Filipinos' standard of living. And finally, Tony Martin's story is also a cautionary tale of how not to help Filipinos. Foreigners and governments who are sympathetic to the plight of the Filipinos can learn greatly from his story. Tony Martin worked with development agencies from Canada, Germany, and the United States for 36 years in the Philippines. Students interested in foreign mission work will get a glimpse of everything that Tony Martin learned, from his successes to his failures of working with the poor in the Philippines. This biography contains 36 years of knowledge that will teach students what works and what doesn't in the field of social and economic development in poor countries. We hope that you will purchase a copy of the biography as soon as it is complete. Send us an email at info@anthonymartin.org to reserve a copy. Thank you for watching.